Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back as we continue our study on the Old Testament survey by today taking a deep dive into the covenants of the Torah. Throughout the Torah, we see a series of covenants related between God and other human beings. Now, generally, at this time, a covenant was something that was made between two nations, particularly two kings. Now, before we discuss particular biblical covenants, we're going to have to look at what a covenant was in the world at that time. There are three characteristics of covenants we're going to discuss today. The first is that all parties are independent. There were two kinds of covenants in the ancient world. One was a suzerainty covenant, the other was a sovereign covenant. A sovereign covenant came about because a stronger king wanted to dominate a weaker king.
I'm a great and mighty king. I don't need to worry about little plebs like you. I'll do whatever I want because I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you, and you are gonna like it. Say what?
With a sovereign covenant, the more powerful king would basically be able to go to a weaker king and say, because I'm bigger than you, you're gonna have to do whatever I want. It's not a discussion, it's not a debate, you're gonna do it whether you like it or not.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
But a suzerain covenant was different. A mightier king, or the suzerain, would speak to a weaker king, often called the vassal state. The suzerain would say, I might be bigger than you, but I don't want to come in, dominate you, and tell you what to do, so how about we do a deal? You, vassal, can stay independent, you can do your own thing. I just ask you acknowledge that I'm super cool and bigger than you, and, pay me some tribute, hook me up, and hey, we're gonna be best of friends, we will protect you, we won't invade you, won't do anything mean to you, hey, let's get our kids married and things like that, let's do some great trade deals, and hey, we're gonna be best of friends.
We're gonna make a great trade deal. And if we can't, we're going to do it. We're going to go a separate way.
This is a suzerain vassal treaty. The interesting thing about it is that both parties had to consent and they were recognized as being independent whether or not they wanted to get into this treaty. What we see in the Torah is God tends to use these suzerain vassal treaties more than any other treaty. Now, this is interesting because in every single sense, the Bible shows us that the God of Israel is infinitely, unimaginably more powerful than his chosen people in every single respect. It would be completely normal and natural for the God of the Old Testament to speak in terms of a sovereign treaty. Yet we find that nearly all of the covenants in the Torah are using the suzerain vassal treaty. What this shows us is that God is respecting the independent choices of the people with whom he wants a covenant. Free will and independence are central to the covenant taking place.
In the immortal words of Cat Stevens, if you want to be free, be free.
By using the suzerain vassal model, God is showing you do not have to enter into this covenant with me. I am giving you a choice of whether or not you want to be in covenant with the Lord. So we see that these covenants are done with full independence. Point number 2. These covenants are legal covenants. They are not dependent on your choice or your whim at that moment. This would not be like a dating relationship at Bible college covenant.
Oh, I love you so much, we're gonna stay together forever and ever and ever.
1 week later,
I just feel in my spirit that your best friend is my true Boaz.
These covenants are in no way based on personal feelings or preference at the time. The covenants are not subject to change. It would be more akin to a mortgage covenant. If you don't want the house later on or you feel like you spent too much on the house, doesn't really matter much because you entered into a legal covenant where you still have to pay what you agreed to pay. In the same sense, those making these covenants with God knew that they were not making something based on their emotional state at the time, but were entering into a legal covenant with God that they had to continue regardless if they felt like continuing it later on. Third and finally, these covenants were enforced. These covenants came with the stipulations of blessing and curses. There was positive enforcement for abiding by the covenant, and negative enforcement for neglecting the covenant. And generally, the suzerain was the one who was going to enforce positive and negative elements of the covenant. What is super fascinating about these biblical treaties is they follow a style of language that would be completely normative in the world at that time. Now, in the modern world, we have very specific language that we use when we're trying to write out a legal contract.
In no event shall company or its directors, employees, or agents be liable to you or any third party for direct, indirect, consequential, exemplary, incendiary, special, or punitive damage, including loss of profits, loss of revenue, loss of data, or other data arising from the use of the website company services, even if the company is advised of the possibility of such damages.
We call these legalese, but the ancient world had the exact same methodology for forming a contract. In particular, the Hittites had a very specific way of forming a legal contract. The contract began by naming the parties and the history the two of them had together. Then they would give you the stipulations, which were what you're supposed to do in order to keep the contract going. Then you had to declare it before the entire society, community, and particular, you had to swear an oath to your God. Then you would spell out the blessings that came from following the covenant and the curses that come from violating the covenants. And finally, the contract was usually brought together by a sign, usually in the form of the two kings sharing a meal together, or trading goods together, or marrying their children together. As we continue to read through the Torah, we're going to see this exact method of covenant formation again and again and again. Thank you for joining us on Theolife. Please join us next time where we'll discuss the specific biblical covenants found in the Torah.